All right, Arise News is on the ground in New York City. United Nations General Assembly is holding its 79th annual session in New York this week. It marks the start of the opening ceremonies. That is Tuesday, which will feature 6 days of speeches. Brazil has a long-standing custom of speaking first because it is historically responsible for starting meetings. Brasilia's speech is followed by the host nation, the United States. Then we've got heads of states are first in order of rank. Then come deputy heads, leaders of governments, ministers, other officials in the speech sequence. 45 heads of government, 2 crown princes, 3 vice presidents, 87 heads of state will be present at the assembly this year. Let's talk about electricity. Ahead of Climate Week NYC, the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, Sustainable Energy for All, and the Rockefeller Foundation have announced support for Mission 300, which is an ambitious World Bank Group and African Development Bank initiative launched in April 2024 to provide improved electricity to Africans 300 million Africans by 2030. Arise international correspondent Adesuwa Giwa-Osagie, who is in New York, she sent in this report.
Good. Welcome.
At an event marking the start of Climate Week, the World Bank Group and African Development Bank Group announced their partnership on an ambitious effort to provide at least 300 million people in Africa with electricity access by 2030. Called Mission 300, it brought together dignitaries from across the world, including the Norwegian head of state.
There are 600 million people in Africa without access to electricity, and we have to find new innovative way of changing that. And this initiative, which is now supporting the World Bank and the African Bank, 300 million by 2030, is ambitious and realistic.
At the very top.
This first-of-its-kind initiative focuses on development funded in local currency to ensure African development is being led by Africans.
Development is about decency and developing with pride. And so the African Development Bank has put forward $2 billion towards clean cooking solutions for women all across Africa. And myself, Prime Minister of Norway, President Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania, and Dr. Birol of the International Energy Agency formed ourselves into a consortium. We had a meeting in Paris. So with our $2 billion and $2.1 billion raised there, we will be able to at least have $4.1 billion to start.
The banks are seeking innovative ways to finance access to electricity and eradicate energy poverty in Africa.
People don't have electricity, they don't have a basic human right. I think without electricity, you cannot get education, healthcare, job opportunities, productivity, dignity, basically. So I'm very focused on looking even in Africa at the demographic dividend of young people coming through. When they grow up in the next 10, 12 years, they're going to need not just the education and health and clean air and clean water they got to get, they've also got to get jobs. And for jobs, you need electricity as a basic enabler. That's the focus.
The ambitious goal seeks to plug the deficit in African development caused by a lack of quality access to electricity.
Even in a diminishing fiscal headroom space, it is incredibly important that we deliver renewable energy, modern energy minimum of 1,000 kilowatt hours, so that Africans can use that energy to more efficiently drive agriculture, more efficiently drive transportation, more efficiently drive healthcare, more efficiently drive economic development more generally, to make sure that where there's limited additional capital, the one that we have is going the furthest possible.
For a continent often left in the shadows, Africans are now leading their way out of the dark. Adesuwa Giwa-Osagie, Arise News, New York.
All right, and joining us from New York City, the city so nice, they named it twice, is Adesuwa Giwa-Osagie, Arise News international correspondent at the United Nations General Assembly. Adesuwa, good morning to you. Thank you so much for that report. So, I mean, as far as the details of that collaboration for energy, do you think it's too ambitious? What do you make of it all? Do you think we're finally they're going to get there by that 2030 mark?
Well, morning, Roses. It's so lovely to see you this morning. And yes, New York is a lovely city, a very specific city for a very specific type of person. I don't know if I have the New York energy, really. But actually, what we heard yesterday is that there's 300 million people who they want to be lifted out of poverty by 2030. such a beautiful thing. Is it too ambitious? I don't think so. It's African-led. They want it to be financed by local currency instead of dollar-backed or foreign currency-backed loans. We had a SE for All, Sustainable Energy for All, led by Damnola Ogunbiyi, who said that she is pioneering this. She's in charge of the governing body in charge of this, and she's pioneering this initiative with Giwa-Osagie, which is in Ganga, a man out of Kenya. And I think it is very ambitious, and we've seen some success. And one of the successes that was actually cited was the program in Nigeria. There's been 15 programs in 11 countries: Nigeria, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire. In Nigeria, in conjunction with the Rural Electrification Agency, the REA in Nigeria, they've actually been able to connect more people to electricity. Now, Nigeria's numbers, as you know, are entirely horrible. It's nothing to write home about, but you have countries like Kenya and Rwanda doing numbers that are comparable with that of Vietnam. So is it very ambitious? Yes. But something that was very important and something that was said yesterday was that it is necessary. It's not just ambitious, but it is necessary, because in order for the whole world, the globe, to reach the 2050 goals for climate, for the world to reach the SDG goals, we are going to need to, first of all, for Africa to be more connected. And so without Africa moving forward, the world has to remain in the dark.
Arise News, of course, is still on the ground in New York, covering the United Nations General Assembly. So great work to Adesuwa, Adefemi Kisanya, and the entire team.